Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week have been going very well so far. College football week 4 is officially here. We've got a really fantastic slate here in week 4 as well. And as always, guys, I've got some really great picks to go ahead and share with you. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day, and more importantly, a new week of college football, comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make a little money here, baby. We got, like I said, a really great week 4 college football slate on our hands. I think, hands down, this is the best overall slate of the year up to this point. Now, there have been some weeks we've had some bigger matchups, some better ranked on ranked games, but from top to bottom, from ranked to non-ranked, these have some of the best games of the year so far. Some good rivalries, some good conference matchups, some good ranked matchups as well. A lot of great stuff to talk about, and I have a lot of picks. I think I have 16 or 17 picks in today's video. I went a little overboard, but there's so many great games. I had to go ahead and talk about some of them in at least a small capacity. Make sure, guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We have a ton of great content between college football, NFL, MLB, and still WNBA coming out daily here on the channel. For myself, I handle college football here on the channel. We have this video. We have all of our Clash of the Titans videos, which, of course, if you don't know what Clash of the Titans is, it's the video series where I go through each and every ranked on ranked matchup throughout the college football season, giving you guys a little bit deeper insight, a little more analysis, and more picks in those videos. At this time, when this video first drops, we already have the Texas Tech and Utah video out. Later on today, we will also have the Auburn, Oklahoma video out. And either late tonight or early tomorrow morning, we'll have the Illinois, Indiana video out as well. So yeah, a lot of great college football content. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. One last thing real quick before we dive into a massive week 4 college football pick slate, we do have to do a quick little recap of how we did last week. And as you can see by the thumbnail, we've been on a pretty solid run, guys, of late. 6-4 last week, not as impressive as our week 2 performance, but 6-4 last week. As you can tell by the thumbnail, we're now 15-6 over our last 2 weeks here on the show. That doesn't include Clash of the Titans, where we went 7-2 last week as well. So we've been pretty successful across the board here with our college football picks. We're now 22-13 overall on the year in this video series, the overall weekly college football picks videos. 22-13, up 5.34 units. If you take Clash of Titans and this video series, we are up just shy of 10 units profit this year in college football. So having a very strong year. A couple of close misses too. I mean, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, we literally missed it by 1 point. So that was a very close miss. Notre Dame, obviously a really tough one. Florida, they kept it close for a while, but they ended up losing by 10. End of the day, we had a couple of really nice plays, though, and we ended up profitable, so that's the important thing. So really solid week. Let's go ahead and build on that here in week 4. Again, a ton of picks to go and share with you guys. A lot of things to talk about. No more time to waste. So let's go ahead and dive into our week 4 college football picks. All right, guys, because we have so many picks, and I don't really want to do an hour-and-a-half long video, some plays I'm only going to spend a minute or two on. Other plays that I feel need more explanation, I'll spend a little bit longer on. So we're not going to spend too much time. We have 16 picks in total, 16 different games to talk about here. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on each one. If you miss anything, don't worry. We're going to have the timestamps down below in the description, as well as the picks down below in the pinned comment. Make it easy to go ahead and follow along with the video. All right, guys, our first game we're taking a look at here is the only Friday game I'm putting on my card for this week. We have Iowa at Rutgers, little Big Ten showdown there. I'm going with the Iowa Hawkeyes -2.5 on the spread. I'm grabbing that from -110 over on FanDuel. We'll jump over to Outlier to show you guys real quick. A lot of different options for tailing, a lot of different sports books for varying odds. As always, guys, a lot of it depends on what's available to you in your state. But as always, make sure to try to shop around for the best sportsbook odds available. It does make a difference at the end of the day. Now, right off the bat, Rutgers has been 3-0. They've been very impressive. But I just think this is a really different type of matchup for Rutgers in comparison to what they played so far this year. First and foremost, this is by far the most dominant defense they have faced and maybe even will face this season. I don't know their schedule off the top of my head. But obviously, Iowa's defense is very, very good. Tied for 14th in the nation in scoring defense, 13th in passing yards, 6th in rushing yards, tied for 3rd in yards per play. Now, Rutgers' offense has been very impressive this year, but going down below the strength of schedule, they're tied for 128th. Now, Iowa not much better, but still better. At least Iowa has played Iowa State, a ranked team that you can say that you got to win against. Or not, they didn't win, but you kept the game close, you played against them, and you kept them low scoring as well. Rutgers, Miami, Ohio are the two toughest games they've played. They really have not played anybody really worth mentioning, if we're being honest here. And I just think Iowa's defense is a massive step up from anything else they've played. The key thing here, and where I think Iowa will ultimately end up winning the game, the defense will keep the game close, but will end up winning the game for Iowa and covering this spread, is that rushing attack. They are the 30th best rushing team in the nation in terms of yards per game. And looking at Rutgers' defense, 91st in rushing yards allowed per game. That's the key advantage there. And you can even see the yellow bar versus the red bar there. Obviously, a massive advantage for Iowa right there. They should be able to run the football, control the clock, play defense the way they want to play it, and have success on the ground where they can go ahead and score. We know they're not a great passing team. It's the typical Iowa thing. Their offense in general isn't necessarily elite, but I think their running game makes them just good enough where they'll be able to go ahead and kind of control the game at their pace, their speed, and ultimately win versus a Rutgers team that defensively is not great overall. And although offensively they've been very solid, again, they have not played a defense quite like Iowa. It'll be a tight game. It's not going to necessarily be the most interesting game of the slate, but I do think Iowa is the better side here. Not by much, but just enough to go ahead and win and cover. So that's our first pick in this week's college football slate. All right, guys, now moving on to the Saturday college football slate. Starting off with the 12 p.m. kickoff game, we've got SMU at TCU. We're going with the over here, 61.5 in this game. I'm grabbing this for -125 over on BetMGM. To me, taking the over in this game isn't really too complicated. You look at TCU's passing offense, okay, top 20 passing offense in the nation, averaging 322 passing yards per game. SMU's passing defense, 135th in college football, giving up just shy of 320 passing yards per game. So there, obviously, you can see TCU is going to be able to have some success through the air. On the flip side here, SMU's passing offense, 31st in the nation, averaging just shy of 279 passing yards per game. Not as good as TCU's, but still pretty good. And then, again, TCU's passing defense, 88th in the nation. So you have two sides where they're both top, 35 in the nation in terms of passing yards per game, some decent passing offenses. Both of these passing defenses leave a lot to be desired outside of the top 75 in college football. SMU in particular on the very low side of the totem pole. Two weak passing defenses, two strong passing offenses, both play at a pretty fast pace. There should be a healthy amount of points scored in this game. And honestly, it's not crazy to say this because TCU so far this year, they've scored at least 42 points in both games played this year. I do think TCU is the better side here. I do lean TCU in terms of a spread pick, although I'm not putting them on my card officially. I do lean TCU here. I think they'll do most of the heavy lifting in terms of the scoring. But as you've seen, the total has actually cashed in both games this year for TCU. 62 versus UNC, 63 versus AC. So I do think this is a good spot. And SMU, again, they've had some high-scoring games as well. This total has actually only hit once, which was that Baylor game. But that's a pretty comparable matchup, honestly. And you saw that Baylor game was 48-45. So I don't think it's crazy to say the over is a good play here. Again, TCU will probably do most of the heavy lifting, but I do think that SMU's offense should be able to contribute just enough, specifically through their passing offense, that they should be able to go ahead and add at least anywhere from 21 to 28 points on the scoreboard. And that may be all we need, especially if I do think, and I do believe this, TCU will go ahead and pour it on a little bit and score at least 35 in this game, 35-40. So I do like the over a lot in this spot. And for -125, the value is certainly there. By the way, guys, if you are watching today's video at this point, let me see who is watching. Comment 8 down below in the comment section. We just passed the 8-minute mark in today's video. So if you are still watching at this point, please go ahead and comment 8 down below. As always, guys, we appreciate those who watch through each and every single video here on the channel. The support really does mean a lot. You're commenting, you're watching, the view duration, all that stuff has been up this year, which is obviously really great to see. So yeah, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, more importantly, but also comment 8 down below if you are watching at this point. All right, guys, our third pick in today's video, we're moving on to Maryland at Wisconsin. Another Big Ten showdown here, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with Wisconsin on the spread here, -8.5. We're grabbing that for -127 is best odds available to me over on DraftKings. The key note here, guys, is that we're grabbing value. Wisconsin, obviously that loss against Alabama kind of knocks them down a peg in the eyes of the public in terms of the sports books, the bettors. But I do think Wisconsin is clearly the better team in this spot. Now, this game's a bit tricky to pick on because there's still a lot of question marks in terms of who's playing quarterback for Wisconsin. Billy Edwards, their normal starter, he obviously missed that last game versus Alabama. One of the big reasons that I gave Alabama as a pick last week. And Billy Edwards, he is questionable. He's a game-time decision here. That knee injury is still an issue. He has been practicing a little bit, so that's obviously good. But unfortunately, at the time of recording, he's a game-time decision, so we really don't know what's going to happen. Based off the fact that he's practicing, and obviously he comes over from Maryland. He's a transfer over from Maryland. It's a revenge game for him. I do think he's going to be extra motivated to try and play in this game. If he plays, I love this spot. If backup Danny O'Neal gets a start, I still honestly like Wisconsin. I don't love it as much as if they had Billy Edwards in. But I like it either way. So that's what I want to say here. Regardless if Billy Edwards plays or not, I still like Wisconsin. Obviously, I love this pick. I think the value would increase, the line would increase if Billy Edwards plays. I think it'd be more realistic to have it at like 10.5 if he plays. But I just don't think this Maryland team is all that tested. Wisconsin, obviously, they just had a real test against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They got beat pretty bad. Again, I called that one. But, I think they've been a little bit more tested in terms of strength of schedule, and not by much, but more than Maryland. The Alabama game obviously made things better for them. Maryland haven't faced a team nearly as good as Wisconsin this year, and on the road for a freshman quarterback in Malik Washington. We'll see how he does here. I think Wisconsin's defense, I think they are pretty strong. Their numbers are going to be a little skewed because they give a lot of points to Bama in that last game, obviously. But even with that defensive performance, they still give up 16 points in that 16 points per game average on the year. So that includes the Alabama game where they gave up 38. So this Wisconsin defense, it's pretty decent. Again, versus Alabama, didn't look that great. But they have a very strong run defense. Their pass defense does leave something to be desired. But overall, I like Wisconsin's defense here against Maryland. Again, you have that massive home field advantage. Freshman quarterback on the road, toughest test so far this year and his career, if we're being honest. And, Wisconsin's offense, I don't really love it, but I think Wisconsin, with Billy Edwards returning, this will give the offense a little bit of a boost. Remember, Billy Edwards has not played since week 1, so, Alabama was not Billy Edwards, MTU, not Billy Edwards. He got hurt in that week 1 game, so they've been running with a backup quarterback for most of the season. His return should at least make Wisconsin's offense a little more dynamic, a little more explosive. Again, if he plays, even if he doesn't, I still like Wisconsin, but I like them even more. Again, one more time, I'll repeat myself. Love them more if they do have Billy Edwards in this spot. I think Maryland, they're a solid team. They're 3-0. They've had a great year, but I think that this is the toughest matchup by far on the road. I just don't think they're going to be ready for a game like this. Wisconsin coming out here looking to take some of the frustration from that Bama loss off on Maryland here. So I like Wisconsin, minus 8.5 here at home. All right, guys, my fourth pick in today's video, we have Syracuse at Clemson, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the Syracuse Orange here on the spread, plus 18.5. Now, I'm grabbing this for minus 136 over on FanDuel. The actual line itself, I believe, is 16.5. So I'm basically buying 2 points on the line here, getting to 18.5, which I think is very important. I do think Clemson is the better team, despite Clemson having a very rough start to the year. They're now officially non-ranked after being ranked in the top 5 to start the season. It's been a bad year for Clemson for sure. I do think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to take some frustration out on Syracuse here, which isn't a bad team necessarily, but not a great team either. We saw them get throttled by Tennessee in week 1. They had a nice come-from-behind win against UConn in week 2. To be fair, if you're trailing UConn the way they were and come back and win, how good of a team are you? I mean, UConn's not the best program in the world. I will say, quarterback Steve Angeli, the transfer from Notre Dame, has been playing very well. His passing numbers have looked very, very strong, so that's one area where Syracuse have been impressed with them. I ultimately am betting this line because I just think it's way too many points for Clemson to cover. This is a team that is 0-3 against the spread to start the year. They're 1-2 overall. Even in their win over Troy, which is the easy game they played, we'll go look at 2025 numbers. They beat Troy by 11. Syracuse is definitely better than Troy. That was their weakest opponent of the year, and they honestly struggled in that game. They were trailing at one point pretty early on in the game, but still, they trailed against Troy. If you in the preseason you had told me Clemson would trail Troy, I'd say you're crazy. Clemson's just not had a great year, and a lot of that is injuries. We got to be honest with Clemson here, okay? A lot of injuries for the Tigers. You look at their injury list; it's insane. Antonio Williams, he's been upgraded to probable, which obviously is big for them, but he's still obviously injured. A lot of Jay Haynes, their star running back, he's still out from last year. So the injuries have been piling up for Clemson. It's really affecting them. And, I think that they're obviously the more talented team. They're the better coach team. Clemson does have a path to winning this game where their defensive line is very strong. Syracuse have had some offensive line issues. That, to me, is where Clemson can win this game. And I do think Clemson wins by 2 touchdowns. I think it's going to be something along the lines of Clemson 34-20 or 34-21. They're going to win this game by 2 scores. I really do believe that. The problem being is that can they cover 18.5? Can they beat them by 19 points? Syracuse has covered this line of 18.5 points in each of the last 3 matchups against Clemson dating back to 2021. So Clemson's struggling right now, even when they weren't necessarily struggling in the past. Syracuse kept this game close the last few matchups. I don't see how Clemson covers this big of a point spread. They haven't covered yet this year. This is a very big total. Their biggest win of the year is 11 points over Troy, which is their only win of the year. I think coming here after that Georgia Tech loss and beating Syracuse by 19, at this point, if you're Clemson, you're trying to get out of here with a win, let alone winning the game with style of points. I think Syracuse, their passing offense is good enough. Despite some offensive line worries, Syracuse should be able to keep this game relatively close. So I like Syracuse here plus 18.5. Again, minus 136 over on FanDuel. Not the most valuable play, but a solid play nonetheless. Syracuse should be able to keep this game within this number, considering Clemson's struggle specifically on the offensive side of the football this year. All right, guys, next up we have number 17 ranked Texas Tech at number 16 ranked Utah, 12 p.m. I said UConn. I said this in the Clash of Titans video too. I said UConn instead of Utah. I guess it's just the Connecticut native in me wanting UConn to be relevant. Texas Tech at Utah, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with Utah minus 2.5 here on the spread. Now, I will be honest, I'm not going to dive much into this game because I already have an entire separate video dedicated to this matchup. So if you haven't checked that out, Clash of the Titans, Texas Tech versus Utah, the video is already out on the YouTube channel when this video releases. Go ahead, check that out. I give out 3 picks in that video and kind of break down the game a little deeper. Just a quick little run through here. I like Utah a lot here. I think they have the coaching advantage at home. Big time Big 12 matchup here. It's going to come down to Devin Dampier, the transfer quarterback from New Mexico for Utah. Can he make some extra plays against the Texas Tech pass defense, which seems to be the only real weakness they have defensively? Now, Texas Tech, like a lot of these teams, haven't really been super battle-tested coming into this matchup, so we'll see how good that defense truly is, taking on Utah's stellar rushing attack behind a really good offensive line. But I do think it'll come down to Devin Dampier in this game. I do trust him to make a couple of big plays in this game to cover the number, get the win at home, and thrust Utah deeply into the college football playoff conversation. I think this team is fantastic. If you watch the videos this year, I've been very high on Utah since week 1. I picked them big time against UCLA week 1. That obviously paid off big. They've looked very good since then. I like Utah a lot here, and I think they're going to get the job done at home against a very good Texas Tech team, but ultimately I think Utah is slightly better. So Utah minus 2.5. That's my pick for this game. Again, if you'd like to see me talk more about this, give a little more insight, some more picks, that video is already out on the channel. All right, guys, my 6th pick in today's video, we have Arkansas at Memphis, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Again, we're going with Arkansas team total over here, 33.5, minus 140 over on DraftKings. Now, you can go ahead and bet the general total, which is not a bad play. I'm simply going with the team total over because I do think Arkansas will do most of the heavy lifting with this total to begin with. And there is that risk that maybe Memphis just doesn't deliver offensively in this game. I trust Arkansas's offense, considering the defensive matchup against Memphis, more to score than I do necessarily Memphis here. Now, looking at just 2025, now the overall numbers going back to last year are pretty good for Arkansas. Just this year, they've cashed this over in all 3 games this season, 100% hit rate. They're averaging 47.67 points per game this year, including their last week game versus Ole Miss, where they did score 35 points in a tough loss against Lane Kiffin and the Rebels. So pretty good numbers for Arkansas. Their offense looks to be pretty solid. Now Memphis defensively, they do have they rank okay, top 20 scoring defense in the nation. All their numbers are okay. There's one key area that, though, the outlier doesn't provide the numbers for, and that is the tackling grade. That's where I went to PFF to get that number. Memphis's tackling grade so far this year is a 41.9. Now, that sounds bad when I first say it. When you look at how they rank in terms of all 136 FBS programs, it's really bad. Memphis currently ranks 132nd out of 136 FBS schools in terms of tackling grade, according to PFF. This team struggles to tackle. That is a problem when you're taking on an Arkansas offense that is top 20 in passing yards per game and top 20 in rushing yards per game. Arkansas should score early and often in this game. Although Memphis, they do rank okay defensively. Again, the story with a lot of these teams, Memphis has not necessarily been battle-tested. Look at the strength of schedule. Arkansas tied for 25th. Memphis tied 114th. Memphis really has not played anybody nowhere near the offensive caliber of Arkansas. The fact that they rank as low as they do in tackling grade, and yet they rank so high defensively, kind of speaks to that weak schedule so far this year. So I just think Arkansas, with the offense they have, The points they've scored so far this year, seeing what I saw in the Ole Miss game, that was the big test for Arkansas. And yeah, they lost that game, but the fact their offense still moved at a pretty efficient pace and scored a healthy amount of points tells me this offense is legitimate. I like Arkansas a lot here. I think Memphis, that poor tackling grade could be a massive Achilles heel going up against this Razorbacks offense. So give me Arkansas here on the team total over 33.5 against Memphis. Again, I don't hate the general total, but I prefer the team total for Arkansas in this spot. All right, guys, our 7th pick in today's video, we have Tulane at Ole Miss. Speaking of Ole Miss, 3:30 p.m. kickoff here. I'm going with another total here. We're going with the over 61.5 in this spot. I'm grabbing that for -110 over on FanDuel. Now, my reasoning for betting this total is very similar to that TCU SMU total we had earlier in the video, where both these teams are very similar in the sense that both of them have a clear weakness, but both of them have the advantage to go ahead and combat that weakness. So let me go ahead and clarify here. Ole Miss, the one area defensively they have really been bad at this year is their run defense. Tied 117th in the nation, giving up just shy of 195 rushing yards per game. Tulane's strength offensively is their ground game, 24th in rushing yards per game this season. So a really strong run rate. They're going to be able to get some big-time runs and move the football against an Ole Miss run defense that has been very lackluster, to say the least. Flip it around the other side. Ole Miss, 32nd rushing offense in college football. Okay, very good rushing offense. Tulane, tied 73rd in run defense. So another team where bad run defense, good run offense. Now, the only other thing that I think Ole Miss, and they are going to do most of the heavy lifting here in terms of this total, they also have a bigger advantage, actually, in the passing department. 14th in passing yards per game, tied for 100th in passing yards allowed. So this is another one where I almost went with the Ole Miss team total over instead of the general over. But I do think that Ole Miss's defense has weaknesses there, and Tulane's offense is good enough where I do think they're going to be able to add some points to the board here and at least contribute to the total. Again, Ole Miss will do most of the heavy lifting. They're going to score the majority of the points here. I think this could be another. They scored 41 last week versus Arkansas. This could be another game where Ole Miss scores somewhere in the ballpark of 40 points. At that point, we just need Tulane to contribute a few touchdowns here and there to go ahead and hit that over, which I think they should be able to do here. So this one's a little riskier. Probably of the 3 totals I've given out so far, this is the riskiest. But I still like the over in this spot. Again, Ole Miss will be able to score a lot of points. I'm just expecting Tulane to score at least somewhere in the ballpark of 20, and we should be able to get this over here. Next up, guys, our 8th pick in today's video. Another total here, another over at that. We're going Michigan, Nebraska, 3:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the over in this game. Now, I will be honest, I do lean Michigan in this spot despite the fact that head coach Sharon Moore is still suspended for this game. I'm not putting it on the official card, but if you guys are looking for a spread pick, I do lean Michigan in this spot, despite the fact they are on the road in a really tough, hostile environment against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, I'm grabbing this over of 45.5 from -125 over on BetMGM. Right off the bat, 3 of the last 4 meetings between these two teams, the over has cashed. So we have seen some higher scoring games, despite the fact that these are two usually noticed as better defensive programs. Over the last several meetings, we have seen the over cash a little more consistently with some higher scoring performances between both sides. Now, Michigan has dominated the rivalry of late, but we have seen some higher scoring games. Now, these are two very good defensive teams. Nebraska, top 10 scoring defense in the nation, best passing defense in the nation. Now, granted, who has Nebraska played? Nobody. Akron, Cincinnati being the toughest game they've had so far this year. You know, Michigan at least has that Oklahoma game in their back pocket. Nebraska's defense will be tested in a way that has not been tested yet this year. Now, this is a difficult spot for true freshman Bryce Underwood, who, he struggled a little bit in that Oklahoma game. This is another hostile environment. Now, Nebraska's not as good as Oklahoma, but very difficult home field advantage for Nebraska. They are also a very strong defensive team. Now, the one area where they're weak, and where this is where I think Michigan has the advantage, is on the ground game. Michigan, 15th rushing offense in college football in terms of yards per game. Nebraska, 75th rushing defense. So that's where the clear advantage is if you're Michigan, especially when you have running back Justice Haynes. Go ahead and run the football down Nebraska's throats. That's where I think Michigan's going to be able to generate enough scoring between Underwood's legs, Justice Haynes' legs, and maybe off play action to get something going in the passing game, a little something going in the passing game. Michigan should be able to score some points. Now, where I think Nebraska contributes here is their passing offense has been very good. 5th best passing offense in the nation, led by Patrick Mahomes lookalike Dylan Raiola. And Michigan's passing defense is not terrible, but it's not great. 43rd in the nation, giving 182.3 passing yards per game. I think their passing defense has shown just enough weakness where a quarterback as good as Raiola has been this year can take advantage of the matchup and score some points. Again, I think Michigan is the better team here slightly. I think they are going to be able to kind of control most of the scoring, but I do think Nebraska, with that passing offense, has enough in the chamber to go ahead and contribute at least a few touchdowns to the total here. And again, the line's kind of small, only 45.5. Michigan has cashed this line in 2 out of 3 games this year. Nebraska has cashed this line in 2 out of 3 games this year. So they're not opposed to this total. Both teams have cashed this total a couple of times this season. I think Nebraska's passing offense should be able to keep them within striking distance of Michigan in this game. Should be able to contribute some points. And then Michigan, with their ground game mixed with a little Bryce Underwood play action, should be able to go ahead and get this total cash. So I like the over 45.5 in this spot. Lean Michigan, but love the total. We are officially at the halfway point of today's video, guys. So real quick, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Outlier. All the data you've seen in this video, all these screens, all the numbers I've shown you guys, the matchup, strength of schedule. I haven't really shown you too much of the public betting perspective, but a lot of stuff to show you guys in these games. There's injuries, insights, everything. It all comes from Outlier. It really is the best sports betting tool on the market. We offer a special link down below in the description that gives you guys a 7-day free trial to check it out for yourself. Like I said, guys, if you want to make smart sports betting choices, you got to have the right tool by your side. And Outlier is the best tool that money can buy. And again, you're getting it for free for 7 days to try it out before you have to eventually pay for it. But I'm telling you guys, you're going to fall in love with Outlier. It's going to make you a smarter sports fan, a smarter sports bettor, and will hopefully make you a little extra cash in your sports betting career. So love this tool. Like I said, I've been using it for years. I use it for every single video here on the channel. So special thank you to Outlier for sponsoring today's video and a lot of our videos here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel. Now, 8 more picks to go. Let's keep on rolling. All right, guys, our 9th pick in today's video. Again, another pick where I'm not going to talk too much because I have a whole separate video coming out dedicated to this game. That'll be out around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. Number 22 ranked Auburn at number 11 ranked Oklahoma. 3:30 p.m. kickoff here. I'm going with the Sooners here, -6.5 at home, -122 over on FanDuel. Very quick, just giving some brief thoughts, saving the rest of it for that video coming out later on in the day. I think Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold revenge game, a lot of people are hyping that up. I think Oklahoma is going to own Auburn in this spot. I just don't think Auburn's defense is good enough to hang with John Mateer in this Oklahoma offense. John Mateer, who looks like a legitimate Heisman candidate, maybe even the Heisman frontrunner, some would say. John Mateer has given Brent Venables something that he's missed during his tenure as the head coach of Oklahoma, succeeding Lincoln Riley, a quarterback that can actually move the ball and run an efficient offense. He's had guys like Spencer Rattler. He's had guys like Jackson Arnold. Just hasn't worked out. John Mateer has been a great fit for this offense. He's taken them to another level. And Auburn, I have some big questions. They have some questions in the coverage. You know, their PFF, we talk about this in the overall video for Clash of the Titans. Their PFF grades for coverage and tackling both rank in the bottom half of the FBS. A lot of question marks with this Auburn defense. And although their offense has been impressive, I think Brent Venables knows Jackson Arnold well enough to go ahead and slow him down. Home field advantage also being a key factor here. I think the Sooners -6.5. They already kind of proved themselves with that Michigan win. I think they're going to double dip and continue to prove themselves here with a big win at home against an Auburn team that is good but flawed. So give me Oklahoma -6.5 here on the spread. All right, guys, my 10th pick in today's video. Another one where I don't have to spend too much time on because honestly it's pretty self-explanatory. Purdue at Notre Dame, 3:30 p.m. kickoff. My Fighting Irish. Going Notre Dame -24.5 on the spread. -115 over on DraftKings. Notre Dame, there's a lot of discourse around should they be ranked, should they not be ranked. I think they should be, and obviously I'm a Notre Dame fan, so you might discredit my opinion. Fair enough. But they've lost 2 games to 2 ranked teams. They lost to Miami by 3, and they lost to A&M by 1. I mean, those are 2 of the top 15 ranked teams in the country. They both lost within a field goal or you know, a 3-point game and a 1-point game. They've been close. Now, loss is a loss. They're 0-2. You know, Clemson 1-2. They're not ranked. They have a win. But I think Notre Dame, despite the fact they've lost some of these games, this is still a good football team. It's just a rough start to the year, tough schedule to start the season off. Now you get to play Purdue, though, which is a nice dip in the schedule. Now, this Purdue team is not as bad as they were last year necessarily. They've actually been pretty decent so far this year. Now, when I say decent, they're not a laughing stock as they were last year. But, obviously for Notre Dame, by far the weakest opponent they've had so far this year. I think Notre Dame is going to take out some frustration. Home game here. They need to win out this rest of the year just to have a shot, a prayer's chance at the playoff. And they got to win with some style points. So they can't just walk out of this Purdue game with a close win. I think, again, Notre Dame, this is a chance for them to take out some of the frustrations from the first 2 weeks, really let their offense shine. Maybe let C.J. Carr really go crazy here with the offense. So from minus 24.5, you can get to 23.5, maybe play it a little safer. But 24.5, I think, is fine for minus 115. Value is good. Notre Dame should roll and win this game by at least 4 touchdowns. All right, guys, our 11th pick in today's video. Moving into kind of the later slate on Saturday, we have North Carolina State taking on Duke, 4 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the Blue Devils here, minus 2.5. Very similar argument here for Duke, as I just said for Notre Dame. Different circumstances, yes, but similar situation. I guess that's a little bit confusing how I said that. My point being, Duke has had a bit of a difficult start in terms of the schedule here. Now, look at 2025. They obviously start off with a very strong win versus Elon, again, to be expected. They then play Illinois, which is now a top 10 team in the nation. They got smoked at home by Illinois, a game a lot of people thought Duke would win at home. And then they played a tough Tulane team and lost that game as well on the road. Now, Duke losing to Illinois and Tulane, very different from Notre Dame losing to Miami and A&M. And Notre Dame kept those games tight versus Duke lost by a touchdown, or in the Illinois case, by multiple touchdowns. So I don't know really why I said I compared it. I guess the reason I find some similarities is the fact that this is a team with some higher expectations. I'm not saying they were a playoff team or were expected to be a playoff team, but people had higher expectations for Duke, and they've had a tough schedule. They've had a tough start to the year. They've played some good teams, and they've lost. And it's unfortunate, but you know what? I credit them tied for 4th right now in terms of strength of schedule. So they've had a tough start. NC State, now they say they're listed tied for 25th, and Wake Forest and Virginia, East Carolina. Not a bad schedule. But North Carolina State, they've been kind of shaky in these games. I mean, Virginia, they beat by 4. ECU, they beat by 7, 10 by Wake Forest. They've won all these games, and they covered the spread in 2 of the 3 games. But, they were a 13.5-point favorite versus East Carolina, only won by 7. There have been some weaknesses. You can see some of the shakiness in some of these wins for North Carolina State, where you can see where a team like Duke might be able to come in and get the win at home. I think this is a desperation spot for the Blue Devils here as well. They need this win very badly. Now, their defense has been abysmal this year. To be fair, NC State's offense has not been that dynamic. On the flip side, their defense has not been all that great either, and you see a clear advantage there. 132nd passing defense in terms of yards per game for NC State. Duke, top 10 passing offense in terms of yards per game. And that includes playing a team like Illinois, who has a very good defense and a top 10 team in the nation. This is it. I mean, Duke, they're not a playoff team. They never were going to be a playoff team. But in terms of bowl eligibility, in terms of where they stand in the ACC, they had lofty expectations. They're already 1-2. They need this win. They lose this game, any aspirations they have for this year, you can kind of flush it down the toilet. They have to win this game big time. And I think they desperation. They're a well-coached team. They have a good quarterback. They have an offense that should be very good. It's been fine. Their passing offense has been good. The rest of it's been mediocre at best. They've been turning the football over quite a bit. They need to clean it up a bit, but I think NC State is a spot where they can go ahead and clean it up. Backs against the wall, must-win game. I'm taking the Blue Devils at home here, minus 2.5. Like I said, guys, massive slate. So many games. I had to talk about each of them in some capacity. Next up, we got West Virginia taking on Kansas on the road, 6 p.m. kickoff. Another Big 12 showdown here. We got Kansas minus 10.5 on the spread, which I'm grabbing from minus 138. The actual line, I believe, now is jumping up to 13.5, 12.5, depending on the book you get it at. I'm grabbing it for 10.5, shaving a few points off to get more value here. Now, the last time we saw Kansas, they came off a very tough loss to a now ranked Missouri team. Now, the key thing for Kansas, where I think they have a big advantage in this spot, is the fact that they've had a bye week. So the last time they played football was September 6th. So they have literally 2 weeks off in between games. They now get to come home after having extra time to watch the tape, make adjustments off that Missouri game, and they come home, take on a Pitt team that last week had a West Virginia team, that had a very impressive overtime victory against Pitt. Now, that's a very big spot, very big win for West Virginia. This could be a letdown spot coming off of such a big win for the program. Going on the road here against a solid Kansas team that's well-rested, that's had time to make adjustments to kind of prep for this game a little more. So I think Kansas has a clear advantage there. I think they're a better team in general, but having that extra prep time, having that bye week, West Virginia coming off a very draining, emotional, physical, close game and overtime win over Pitt, I think Kansas will be well rested. They're going to be well adjusted and well ready to go in this spot. Neither of these programs are great football teams, but I do think they're both in that sort of middle class of they're solid. They're not ranked teams, but they're better of the non-ranked programs in the FBS. They're the better of the non-ranked programs. I like Kansas in this spot again. They showed some fight against Missouri. Missouri now a ranked team. That loss looks a little bit more impressive for Kansas, considering that Missouri is now ranked. I think Kansas is the play here at home. Again, that rest is going to be a massive advantage against West Virginia, who probably is coming in with some tired bodies in this one. All right, guys, we're running a little short on time, unfortunately, so I'm going to kind of blow through these next 4 picks. I'll give you the picks. I'll give a very brief reason. I apologize for doing that. Just schedule constraints. Unfortunately, have to kind of move quickly here to get through these last few games. We have South Carolina non-ranked at Missouri. I just mentioned Missouri in the last game, having a pretty good year. Obviously, that Kansas win in their back pocket is their signature win of the 2025 season so far. Now, South Carolina started the season off solid, and then they got beat pretty badly at home there versus Vanderbilt last week. Not what you want to see for South Carolina, their first instance of SEC play. Looking into this matchup, South Carolina obviously beat Missouri last time they played last season, a big upset win for the Gamecocks. I think Lenore Sellers, who obviously is probable, he was in the concussion protocol. He is expected to play in this game. He hasn't really been as good as I thought he'd be, considering that he is supposed to be one of the better quarterbacks in college football. South Carolina's offense has not looked all that great. I expected a lot more from Lenore Sellers. Big spot here on the road against a Missouri team. This is South Carolina's chance to say, hey, we know we lost last week. It was a bad spot. Let's go ahead and wake up, specifically on the offensive side of the football. Look, ultimately, I do think Missouri is going to win this game at home, but I do think South Carolina can keep this close. The key here is the number. Now, I'm grabbing it from -136 on FanDuel, plus 11.5. I'm expecting South Carolina to go ahead and keep this game within this number. I think Missouri wins. Again, last year you saw South Carolina won this game 34-30 at home. Was a very big win. Now, these are two different teams. South Carolina still has Lenore Sellers, though. They were supposed to be one of the better teams in the SEC this year. They haven't really lived up to that expectation so far, but I do think they can keep this game close. I think that loss versus Vanderbilt, they're going to go to the back, make adjustments, realize we got to step up here if we have any chance of kind of salvaging this year. You can't afford to lose this game because the schedule doesn't get really any easier from this point on for South Carolina. Like I said, their defense has been okay. Really, they haven't been great in any category, so maybe taking South Carolina might not seem like the smartest play, but considering they beat them last year, this is a team that obviously was a very strong South Carolina team last season. They've been disappointing so far this year, but I do trust that Lenore Sellers can figure it out, put it together, and get South Carolina back on track here. I think it starts here. Again, I think Missouri probably does win this game, but South Carolina plus 11.5, I think, is not a bad spot in this one. All right, guys, 3 picks left. We have another ranked matchup here. Number 9 ranked Illinois at number 19 ranked Indiana. 7:30 p.m. kickoff again. I'm going to save most of my thoughts on this game for the video that comes out probably tomorrow morning at this point because of scheduling. But I'm going Illinois in the spread here plus 7.5. -143 on DraftKings. A lot of people are telling Indiana. The line has definitely moved in the favor of the Hoosiers. It opened up at 4.5, has now jumped up to 6.5. I'm buying an extra point, taking the line to 7.5. I think Illinois is getting a little bit disrespected here in the conversations. Now, you can make the argument that Illinois hasn't been battle-tested. I think Indiana hasn't been battle-tested. At least Illinois has the Duke game in there, and I know Duke hasn't been great this season, but at least they have that in their back pocket. It's something more than what Indiana has. You look down below here, strength of schedule. Indiana actually ranks higher than Illinois, which I don't really understand that because I don't really know who Indiana's played that warrants that ranking. But I think Illinois, they are a very strong offense and a very strong defense, specifically on the defense side of the football. I've been very impressed. They are a very good run defense, which obviously is where Indiana's strength comes from. I think they can go ahead and slow us down. I'm not necessarily picking them to win this game outright, but I do like them in the spot. I think their defense is getting disrespected. It's good enough to slow down this Indiana offense, which ranks pretty well. But again, they played nobody worth mentioning. Like I said, at least Illinois has Duke on the schedule. And their offense leaves something to be desired. But, I don't think Indiana's defense, which is very good, I think Illinois can have some success. It's going to be a lower scoring game. The under is... Again, not trying to give away all my picks in that video later on. The under's not a bad play here. The key is keeping this game within a touchdown. I think they should be able to keep this game within a touchdown. Plus 7.5 is the key number. They're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games on the road. I think Illinois can keep this game within striking distance. Not saying they're going to win necessarily, but I think their defense is just good enough to keep this game on the lower scoring side. As long as their offense can make a couple of plays, they should be able to hang around in this one. So Illinois plus 7.5. Next up, guys, we got Miami taking on Florida. 7:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Again, one more time, I apologize for the rush nature of these last few picks. I promise you guys the research was done on these, so these are all great picks. I just can't, unfortunately, take the time to go ahead and kind of go deeper into the explanation here. This one, to me, pretty easy. Miami minus 7.5, -120 on FanDuel is what I'm grabbing it for. This Florida team now back-to-back weeks has been disappointing. I bet on them last week, hoping they'd bounce back into LSU. LSU didn't play great, but they took care of business here. The spread was pretty close. I thought Florida would keep it close. They lost by double digits again. I say again, they didn't lose by double digits to USF, but they did lose again. Back-to-back losses against ranked teams. To me, that LSU loss was Florida's chance to tell us, hey, that USF game was bad, but we are a good team. We deserve to be ranked. We deserve to be in these bigger conversations in college football. We can hang, and they can't hang. Their offense looks really bad right now, despite the fact they have good pieces, including quarterback DJ Lagway. It just has not come together. This is not the spot to figure it out. After back-to-back losses, on the road versus LSU, they immediately have to go ahead and pivot and go on the road against Miami. Back-to-back brutal road games for Florida. Miami, obviously, they are the real deal. I picked them, and a lot of people criticized me for picking them last week. And I took their team total over. I took their first half spread, their overall spread. I loved Miami last week, and they proved me right. 49-12, they destroyed USF. They have that Notre Dame win still in their back pocket. They now have 2 ranked wins on the season. At home here, again, this is their 4th straight home game. So no traveling worries for them versus Florida, where they're now traveling again for the 2nd time in 2 weeks. 7.5 points. Miami, based on how Florida has played so far, Miami should go ahead and destroy them in this game. The Hurricanes look legit, man. I'm telling you, they look like the real deal. These two teams both played USF within a week of each other. Florida lost by 2 to USF. Miami beat USF by 37. That's really all you need to know. I don't trust this Florida offense. And defensively, they're not awful, but Miami's offense is legit. So I love Miami in this spot. Minus 7.5 is what we're going for. All right, guys, on our 16th and final pick in today's video, we have Michigan State at USC. 11 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the USC team total over 35.5 points in this game. Right off the bat, the key area here for USC is that passing attack versus Michigan State. Now, so far this year, USC has cashed this over in 2 of 3 games. They did miss the mark versus Purdue, only scoring 33 points in that one. But in their previous 2 games, they went ballistic in the scoring department. And Michigan State's defense just isn't that great. It's tied for 75th in the nation in terms of scoring, in terms of points per game. The key area here is their pass defense, 119th in college football, giving up 273 yards per game. USC, the 6th best passing offense in college football, 2nd best scoring offense. You know, the running game is good. The passing game has been good. Decent offensive line. You know, defensively, we're not really worried about that. We're just worried about the team total over here. And I think USC should be able to score 36 points in this one. Michigan State defense has some concerns. You know, look at the points versus Michigan State here. Boston College last week scored 40 points, or last time out. Now, Michigan State's coming off a bye week. So that is an advantage Michigan State has here. They had a bye week. They haven't played in 2 weeks. They had extra time to prep for this game on the road against USC. But 40 points to Boston College. If Boston College can do that to Michigan State, imagine what USC, what this offense can do against Michigan State. So like I said, good numbers across the board here. 67% hit rate. They're averaging 55 points per game this year. For minus 130, I think it's definitely worth putting at least half a unit on. I just think their offense is legitimate. Michigan State, a lot of questions with their pass defense here. USC should score a consistent amount of points in this one. All right, guys, that is it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Again, we got a ton more college football content coming out over the weekend. We have a couple more Clash of the Titans videos coming out, so make sure to go ahead and check those out. Until next week, guys, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy week 4 college football. Like I said at the top of the video, a fantastic slate. A ton of great games going on, as you saw from the 16 games I picked from. And I still left some good games out, so there's a lot of great stuff this week, guys. So make sure to go ahead and watch this video, watch all the other videos, and enjoy your week 4 college football slate. Until next week, I hope you're all winners. Let's go ahead and make some money, baby. Let's go.